Good morning, everybody. My name is Madeline, and this is day 6 of working on this project. Yep. Here I start working on Sethiroth's sword. Now he has a katana-like sword that was about, I think it was like 5 to 8 feet long, and whatnot. So here I kind of struggled with creating the tip a little bit, but I eventually got it. And then here I am making the handle. Just constantly looking back and forth at a reference so that I can get the shape going. And I'm making the hilt, I think that's what it's called, or a handguard. And then eventually making the handle. So here I think I'm about to work on his hair. That was probably the most difficult part about this model, was creating his hair. I don't really do hair very well with the models, so I had the idea of creating, the general shape and then using sculpting tools to kind of get it to fold and bend how I need it to. Of course, struggling. I definitely did get the general idea down, so I think if you squint at it and then someone tells you that it was supposed to be Sethiroth, you'd be like, oh yeah, I can see it. It's definitely a little rough. I don't know how he managed to have like those black spots on his hair, because that means that the panels are kind of inverted or inside out basically. But I kept going because I was running out of time, basically. Yeah, so the way I kind of looked at his hair, it looked like it was kind of divided into 3 parts. He had his side bangs, which I had done and then mirrored, and then he kind of has the rest of his hair kind of behind him that flares out and then comes down to a point, which is kind of what I tried to replicate. Here I was getting rid of all my references, trying to just clean up my file, basically. And then now I was going to start working on his body. I needed to make it look like him. This part was a little difficult because his T-pose did not match what I had made. He's got his arms much lower. So I had to use a very fancy measuring tool known as scissors to kind of like gauge the thickness and the length of the shoulder to the elbow to the forearm, or to the wrist for the forearm. And then just adding loop cuts all around the body so that I can just kind of mold it, make it a little more rounder, make some areas wider or thinner with his legs and whatnot. And then also just adding loop cuts throughout the body kind of evenly, so that way for the posing process there would be enough edges to move his body around without things folding or collapsing in on itself, basically. Here I'm working on the wrists. Not the wrists, the arms, basically. And whatnot. So... and I had to make it a little bit longer, according to the scissors. The neck, I didn't know what I was supposed to do for the neck. I don't think I actually ever made a proper neck other than that stick that's coming out of his body. I think mainly because his head was so big that you wouldn't see his neck in the pose that I wanted him to be in and whatnot. And I was correct, you know, by the time we did do the posing, you didn't see his neck because of how big his head was. And that was completely fine. Here, I'm starting to work on his trench coat. So I'm making it hollow inside and just basically making a cone. And then I was gonna kind of like mold it around his body, basically. This is where I really started to lose. I really did not have enough time to put a lot of detail into this, so it was basically just the general idea of his outfit. Not outfit, his uniform. And whatnot. So just doing some little more adjustments here and there. Getting rid of the neck because it was weird. I guess I did do a little something for the neck. Something slightly bigger and rounder. And then his giant head, which has the most amount of polys compared to the rest of the body. And then of course I'm attaching the feet and the hands and then mirroring them so that way, you know, everything lines up pretty good. And then putting it all together as like one file. Doing some adjustments to the hair because I was looking at the reference, seeing if I could make it look a little better. I also had realized that I did not put ears on him at all, and I was hoping that would be fine. It was not. You could definitely see that he needs some ears. Here I had to do a lot of the UV unwrapping, which is very time consuming. I was using like the auto unwrapping because I'm really bad at it, and of course I had no time to manually do it, so I was just using the auto unwrapping, which does really good until you realize that some of your polys are kind of messed up, and some of the whenever you unwrap it, some things will be twisted or kind of folded on itself, which can cause problems for the texturing phase. So, as I'm pulling in one object at a time, I was kind of making sure that nothing was folded onto each other or twisted. Otherwise, I'd have to grab the edges and kind of stretch it out, hoping that nothing else would break in the process, because it's all kind of connected. So I think the hair and the face were the main things to concern, because that had a lot of polys, but also a lot of a lot of molding or sculpting, which can cause a lot of problems. Here, I was struggling because no, this is not the part I had struggled with. So I immediately started. This is Adobe 3D Painter. This is what we've been using to texture paint our stuff, our characters, any models that we have. So I first started by blocking each folder into categories. So I think I had like the suit, the hair, the face, sword, kind of stuff like that. First blocking in all of the main textures and colors. So yeah. And then struggling every so often trying to get it to do what I want it to do. Here I was struggling to figure out why the color wasn't transferring on the wrist guards. So I moved on and I went to the face, and I was mortified by how wrinkly his face was. And he's got a bald spot. I love him. I've been calling him Schmeagol the whole time because he's just a terrible off-brand of Sethiroth that I did. I honestly did butcher this character really badly. But in my defense, this was the very first time I was modeling a human. And I was suggested Sethiroth because I had no idea what to do. And I think he was a good challenge. Probably not the best choice as my first project, but I love a good challenge. Here, I was looking at the model, and he had like a corset around his abdomen, so his chest was revealed. Under his, whatchamacallit, I guess, his trench coat. So I colored in his chest and the neck, so you could still very clearly see the awful texture that is his body. And then here I was creating some seams. So I guess the texturing was a little off because we got some lines that are going in, some lines that are going above, and then some that just won't visibly show and whatnot. Okay, so then here is the posed version of the body. By going into Mixamo, I believe that's what it is. It's another Adobe website that will rig your characters for you, actually, and then also add animations to it by just selecting whatever animation you want. So I picked a kind of idle animation and then move the body around a little bit so that way I can get the pose that I want. I struggled to understand that in order to keep the pose, you needed to make a copy of the body so that way it was no longer connected to the rig, and then export it. So here I think I was finally able to figure it out and then get the pose into the painter and whatnot.